Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we continued on with the main story, and now we actually have to deal with Tyranids.
Careful down there, Inquisitor. The world is crawling with Tyranids.
My main concern is not those Xenos, but another one in particular. Are you certain the Harlequin?
I am, as much as one can be certain about Harlequins. But I know her, and I'm confident you'll meet her. The Tyranids are hibernating, but trust me, your arrival will stir them up mightily.
A precise and surgical strike is what I need now. Send me the coordinates of the Harlequin.
There are 3 webway gates in the area. The Harlequin could be near any of them.
I'm still perplexed by the ferociousness of the Tyranids without their hide.
It is indeed remarkable. The Xenos recognize the futility of a full-scale invasion and use the available biomass to infect as many planets as they could.
Still, eventually they were purged by the Imperium.
Not entirely. After the Tyranids had scattered their forces, isolated diaspores were able to survive eradication.
Inquisitor Mercer, do you have any idea what the Harlequin is trying to achieve?
First of all, it used to be their world. I'd say the Eldar regard it as their world still. Harlequins are attracted to the sites of great tragedies.
What is so unique about this planet?
This used to be an Eldari maiden world, at a hub in the webway. Numerous gates are still intact.
So she can dance between the webway and real space. A perfect hideout for a Harlequin.
I was waiting for all that dialogue to end and they just didn't shut up. But I have some news about more stuff about the Leagues of Votann, so the squads. Games Workshop released more information, and it boils down to we don't know what the squats are actually called, because the Votann aren't the squats. The Votann are essentially supercomputers that each league has one of, and the new little bit about them says that each league has one, and they contain they're a repository of knowledge. They contain everything. Science, weapon specifications, battle tactics, genealogy, even standard template constructs, so STCs. The downside is, after centuries, if not millennia, of perpetual use, 1, they weren't built to run eternally, 2, because of that, well, I guess that's just the one thing, is they weren't built for that, and as a result, they've developed, at least a number of them have developed personalities. Whether or not that's AI, as the Empire would see fit to call it, abominable intelligence, I don't know. But either way, it's an interesting bit to kind of go on, because it, like the stuff I had saw before, it does lean into what's potentially heretical, and you don't really know what could come of this, because these Votann could act however they want. I mean, it's essentially C-3PO with all the knowledge of a small empire. So they could be stubborn, they could be malicious. It's all up in the air. Going with that, we could see effectively Chaos Dwarves, Chaos Squats. Would be an interesting direction to see them go. And honestly, it'd be kind of nice to see new Chaos. Since, like last episode, going over, the factions that haven't gotten a lot of attention, it's not like we're getting anything for the Dark Mechanicus or Traitor Guard anytime soon. Perfectly suitable factions for Chaos to get a little bit more stuff, but you know, what can you do? It'll be interesting. The Votann seem to use almost like a railgun weapon, or at least the squats. So it'll be interesting. It just kind of sucks having to wait for more information. Because, I mean, that's really all they gave out was just, oh yeah, the Votann are specifically robots. They're supercomputers. Because I highly doubt those STCs are really gonna... I get the feeling they're not really gonna rear their head, or if they do, they're going to be very minimal. You know, it'll be like, hey, here's a Sentinel, and it's a new pattern Sentinel. It's not gonna be tons of brand new stuff. I figure, at least. Because in the end, when you think about it, they're near human, so you can't really do a ton different. You can do visual changes, but if they're still even remotely aligned with humanity, and they're using old, I would assume some old guard tech, or at least current guard tech, it's not going to be anything super out of the ordinary. It's just going to be the armaments, maybe up-armored vehicles. But they will definitely get their own kind of unique stuff too. I can't imagine they would just do, you know, standard IG stuff. That's not going to sell.
We must talk, Harlequin.
I have good news.
Oh, cool. We get to use a Crimson Wanderer next.
Another heroic.
The more I think about it, the more I realize that the Leagues of Votann, they seem to be keeping with a lot of kind of classic squat lore, or at least they should be. Because some of the old lore was that they had... what was it? They essentially had fortress cities that they lived on, like essentially dwarven holds. And while all of the squats are of the same race, they didn't always align with each other, and finding old, abandoned, or long-lost holds, they would actually fight each other over them. And it'd be interesting, because it seems like they're kind of sticking with that. Had to stop myself screwing up words. But they seem to be sticking with that, because when you think about it, it's the Leagues of Votann, and it's flat out said, you know, there's multiple supercomputers, so it's not just one computer with a number of kind of slave units throughout the galaxy. It's individuals. Whether or not they work together is a big question. And I do wonder, with the sheer power of these supercomputers, how much sway do they have within squat society? Because you don't really want to mess with something if it can shut off your air, your water, your everything. And that it would be interesting for them to be like, yeah, you could almost argue the machines kind of could be keeping them hostage to a degree.
By the Emperor. Will this unholy tide ever subside?
And it'll be interesting
The
for,
Wanderer is wading knee
like, the
deep in that
Adeptus
cold
Mechanicus,
system.
how they handle it.
I feel your frustration, pilot.
Because on one hand I can see them being all excited, and on the other hand,
Assured,
immediately screaming tech heresy and having a problem with all of it.
Those abominations the most fiercely.
There's a lot of potential, though. We'll have to wait and see, but I think it'll be interesting. I like the idea of potentially chaos squats. But like I said, it would run the risk of just another chaos faction that gets abandoned in a couple of years. And as it stands, we need factions to actually be maintained. Because at this rate, we're going to have, you know, depending on who gets what attention, you could have even more factions just getting ignored. And that's not what 40K really needs at this time. But a part of that could be because they're also doing conversions for a lot of the old Horus Heresy miniatures. They're converting or making plastic versions, which is cool. It just runs the risk of these things being kind of a lot of stuff being put on the back burner. As much as I like Horus Heresy, I feel like there's also the problem of how long do you support it and how much do you put into it? Because it's the classic Halo problem of, you know, Halo 1, standard weapons, Halo 2, you know, you had the SMG, you had the Brute Plasma Pistol, you had the, I think it was Halo 3, they had their weird Brute 3-man vehicle. And then Halo 4, or, well, ODST, Reach, 4, 5, Infinite, a lot of that stuff went away. And there was no explanation. They're just like, oh yeah, plasma rifles, they're gone, shut up, don't question it. Look at new gun. And especially when, you know, you had Reach where they added new stuff that disappeared. In the in-game timeline, it doesn't make sense. And that kind of runs a risk in 40K, just where does this stuff go? And that's always a problem I have, is just poor continuity in that sense. And I worry 40K runs the risk of hitting that because of Horus Heresy. And it'd be nice if they at least introduced rules for those old weapons. You know, it'd be like, hey, you're using this Archaeotech weapon, you can only field 3 of them. You know, you can only equip so many guys with them, and they cost a lot more. Essentially turning what would be like a basic infantry into something better. I don't want to say an elite, because I feel like using elite has like the wrong connotation, because they would be more powerful than standard infantry, but that doesn't mean their armor is better unless you would equip them with, you know, Archaeotech's shields or something. But then that would be the Archaeotech piece. Just something to kind of justify that stuff. Be like, oh hey, you know, the Salamanders are gonna bring out their super mega multi-melta that no one else has and they haven't used since Horus Heresy. You know, okay, it makes sense they'd have some of their older tech still locked up somewhere. They're not breaking it out for, you know, every single little orc fight, but when there's a big invasion or a dire need, they could field it. And that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.